Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
You're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the new generation took over the WWF. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
I hear your elbow. I hear your soul. I hear your soul telling me as a child when a big storm would go by, you would hold your mother for help.
That was pretty good. Joe Giammatteo.
Listen to the flesh pounding.
There's a lot of flesh pounding going on in this one. I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one pay-per-view at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the 1995 King of the Ring. The King of the Ring aired on June 25th, 1995, and was recorded at the Spectrum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Features Vince McMahon and Doc Hendricks on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I am ready.
Yes.
All right, then, let's get into it. Just a brief reminder for our listeners out there, the pay-per-view rules. There is no Jobber of the Week this week because there are no jobbers here, in theory. There will be no highlights and lowlights because we're each going to be giving our star ratings on these matches, and Joe is going to hit us with what Meltzer rated these matches with afterwards to see how much everything lines up. So, with that being said, our intro. Welcome to Philadelphia, everyone. Kerwin Selfies is here piloting the WWF blimp so that we can get a bird's eye view of the city where shit is about to go down. Speaking of shit, here's Stephanie Wyand to provide to us, in its entirety, our first match of the evening. Savio Vega with Razor Ramon defeats IRS, that's Erwin R. Shyster, with the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase by pinfall in a King of the Ring qualifier? In 4 minutes and 1 second. Just real quick, one of you guys want to give us an explanation as to what's going on here with the King of the Ring qualifier?
It seems like since Razor Ramon is legitimately injured, his ribs are hurt here, they decided to have like a dark match qualifier, a final qualifier match.
Yeah, which did not air on the original pay-per-view.
But we got to see it on the network.
Yep.
I'm assuming no Meltzer rating for this match, right?
No, I have it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
I think he goes to the event, so he probably rates all the dark matches, yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, thanks to the good folks over at Coliseum Home Video for providing this to us. Savio Vega, the non-English-speaking Caribbean legend, is apparently from the South Bronx. Did not know that going into this. And this is where we receive the information that this is a match for the final spot in the King of the Ring tournament. I really liked the repetitive quick pins at the start to try to establish a kind of a baseline of high energy, and the selling from IRS when he attempts a splash from the top rope, and Savio lifts his leg for a kick to intercept was somewhat entertaining. Compared to Savio Vega, though, IRS just kind of drops like a sack of potatoes. This was a thing that I noticed over the course of this match, and I don't know if it's maybe a stylistic difference or what, but whenever IRS sells, he just kind of drops, much like a sack of potatoes, whereas Savio Vega has kind of like almost a grace to the way that he falls and bumps. I hate to say it, but that's all that stood out to me in this match. There was nothing offensive here, but nothing to rave about either. For the simple fact that there's not much here to talk about, I gave this match 1 star. Ryan?
I agree with you with the high energy that it seemed to start with, especially out of Savio Vega. He really seemed to be bringing the energy, and it started with his promo. We mentioned it before, even if you don't understand what he's saying, you could tell that he is hyped up and ready to go, and the energy just kind of emanates from him, regardless if you understand the language or not. I thought Savio did a really good job, but as to be expected, when IRS started to slow things down, he started to get his holds on and whatnot. The normal IRS stuff started to take over, but I thought for a dark match, these two guys weren't working too bad together. I have to ask you two, though, is this the first time we've seen Savio's finisher, the roundhouse?
The kick.
So when I first saw it against IRS, I was really underwhelmed by it. Not necessarily its execution. It's a good-looking roundhouse kick. It just doesn't seem like a finisher to me. It's just a roundhouse kick.
It's more like a setup for a finisher, really.
Right. It's a setup. And like I said, it's executed fine. It just doesn't really feel like a finisher. So all in all, it ended up being a pretty serviceable match for a dark match that it just gives a qualifier. I would have liked a little bit more action out of IRS, but I gave it 2 stars.
Did you guys notice the doormen for the event?
I guess I did during the event. I didn't notice if they were there for this match.
Same. I definitely noticed them later on, but I don't think I noticed them during this.
Well, that is Matt and Jeff Hardy, the Hardy boys.
Wow.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
No shit.
And as we all know, half that pay went to Gary Sinwell.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Be a shame if something
yes.
happened to them knees, kid.
Yeah. I agree with you guys on, things moved well and quick when Savio was on the offense in this match. Pretty nice pop for Savio. I think the fans were just kind of excited to get this thing going. But I probably went too high on this, but I think given the fact that it's a dark match, I gave it 3 stars just because I thought it was an average match. I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was good. Just kind of right down the middle for me. Dave Meltzer gave it 1.5 stars. Now, you guys might know this, but IRS is like an agent now. He's like a trainer, I guess, for WWE, or he was.
Yeah, didn't he just get let go?
Maybe,
a couple weeks before this recording?
Maybe, yeah. But he had been doing this for years, I guess, and this might be like the start of it, because Meltzer says, with IRS about to retire to become a road agent, not to mention the winner of this match facing Yokozuna, the finish was guaranteed. So it was like, Savio Vega's going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He said they played the show as a story of Vega somehow being like Rocky Balboa. Both worked hard, but a lot of stuff wasn't well timed.
Yeah, I really don't see any reason to disagree with that.
Yeah.
Ryan, I'm glad you brought up that finisher, because that finisher was so unimpressive that not only did I not note it, I didn't remember it in the least bit.
Well, I mean, that was, I saw the kick and then the match ended, and I was like, wait, that's the finisher? And then as the King of Ring progressed, I learned that is indeed his finisher.
Well, we're going to take it now to the new intro. This is the original intro that happened. This is Vince roaring at us rather than Stephanie YN squeaking at us. We're ready for action here in Philadelphia. Let's not forget, for the first time ever, a Kiss My Foot match will be tonight, in case you didn't know.
I forgot all about it.
Tonight's main event.
Yeah. This banter between Doc Hendricks and Vince McMahon will take us into our next match. Savio Vega with Razor Ramon defeats Yokozuna.
Double wide! Double deep!
With Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji by countout in a King of the Ring quarterfinal in 8 minutes and 24 seconds. I have to say, I liked the little promo that Savio cuts before coming out and down to the ring. I couldn't understand 90% of it, but it carried a great level of enthusiasm and energy. It got me going. Again, even without being able to understand it, the enthusiasm came through the screen.
Yeah, it's just, you could feel it.
As far as Savio and Yoko goes, both of these guys were selling really well for each other. I know we like to shit talk Yokozuna every chance we get. certain times, in certain ways, you can see glimpses and glimmers of what he used to be before packing on an extra 200 pounds from whenever he was a legitimate superstar. No, I shouldn't say that, not a legitimate superstar, but back whenever he was in his prime, he was about 200 pounds lighter than he is right now in the 95 King of the Ring. And you can just every once in a while catch glimpses of it. The Vulcan nerve pinch made an appearance, of course, once Yoko was running out of steam. One thing that I really loved was seeing Jim Cornette take that bump on the outside. That was great to see. He did a nice little pancake flop off the apron and down to the concrete. But once Owen Hart came out and things became a teensy bit of a clusterfuck at ringside, I was turned off. The finish, like I said before, was a count-out. I didn't quite care for the count-out finish, but I have to say that this match didn't really feel like it was 8.5 minutes long. It felt shorter than that. And with a solo Yokozuna, that's a good thing. Once again, there wasn't a whole lot to like or dislike in this one, but one thing that did come out of it is that it made me like Savio Vega more, and it made me glad that Savio won and would continue in the tournament. I really like the push that Savio is getting, and the story being told with him here over the course of this pay-per-view, beginning right here. Because of all of these things, I'm going to give this match 2 stars. Joe, what did you think?
This pay-per-view is known for being one of the worst ever, but I want to point out that it starts out okay, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. The only thing I don't like about this is that you're having Savio Vega beat one half of the tag team champions. So you're really sort of making one half of your tag team champions look like shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yokozuna, it's just sad where he is at this point. This was a guy that was a headlining heel like a year ago, and now he's kicking off a pay-per-view show. It's just kind of sad at this point, but I like where it's going with Savio Vega. I didn't think this match was very good, mostly because of what I just pointed out with the fact that they're kind of burying one half of their tag champs, so I gave it 2 stars.
Starting out with just how massive Yokozuna is, I think Vince even he mentions just his massive girth. I was reminded, Bartlett, of you mentioning how he seems to be overflowing.
Yeah.
Something I saw in this match was at some point he was standing with, I guess, his legs together, but his legs have gotten like so large that they have morphed into almost like one massive unileg.
Oh, that's so gross.
There was like no separation between the two.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I'm kind of agreeing with, I don't know, I guess maybe a little bit more Bartlett. I was pleasantly surprised by Yoko's selling ability for Savio. And I'm really getting up on Savio here. The 2 matches that we've had back to back, he is giving it all he's got out there. He is selling his heart out and pulling out some really good looking moves. So this seems to be a push that we're getting for Savio because, like you said, Joe, he beat one half of the tag team here. I guess one out that they gave it to not, humiliate one half of your tag team is they made it a count out. It wasn't a clean win, so that's the little bit of an out they give it to, Savio just didn't kick Yokozuna's ass and pin him. I also gave it 2 stars. I thought it was a passable match that I enjoyed for the most part.
Yeah, so reading the Observer here, there's not much of a recap at all from Meltzer other than just what happened in the match, but he only gave it 3/4 of a star, so he did not like this match.
He did not see what we did.
Yeah, that's kind of surprising considering how up everybody seems to always be about Yokozuna. And I mean, I know we're looking back on this 25 years later, but it's like I said in the breakdown there, or my notes, you get little glimpses of how good he must have been 200 pounds ago, and you'd think that Meltzer at least would notice like, hey, we got a couple glimpses of the old Yoko here. It wasn't that bad. You'd think you'd get a little bit better than 3/4 of a star from him,
Not to mention that outside of Yoko, I thought, Vega did a hell of a job.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, what the hell? At least give it a star for his efforts.
Yeah. Well, what does not deserve a star of any kind is this next segment, which is a close-up of a nasty, disgusting foot. belongs to the king, and apparently it is horrible with stench there where he's at. That's all I'll say with that. I can't wait for this to be done with. Lawler there in the locker room, stinking the place out, will take us into our next match. The Roadie with Double J, Jeff Jarrett, defeats Bob Holly by pinfall in a King of the Ring quarterfinal match in 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Right off the bat, that charge into the power slam to start things off was great. I thought that looked fantastic. And the shoulder block that Bob Holly puts into the Roadie looked great. The longer this match went on, the stiffer and crisper these moves looked. The selling with both of these guys was perfect here. And there were one or two missed hits and a couple whiffs as far as like punches go. But it was all forgotten by Bob Holly executing a fucking Hurricane Rana on the Roadie out of nowhere. The last person that you would expect to do a Hurricane Rana was Bob Holly. And I mean, it wasn't perfect by any means, but he nailed it, so that's good. I don't know about you guys. I was really confused by that pinfall at the end, though. It was damn close.
Yeah, it was weird. Did the referee fuck that up or something? I'm not sure. Looked weird.
I don't know. I mean, I wasn't able to figure out what was going on with that. I went back and watched it a couple times, and it's weird. I mean, the camera was at a bad angle, so we couldn't really see.
Yeah, some miscommunication there.
Yeah. Despite that weird pinfall at the end, I thought that this was a really entertaining match. This was full of great work by both competitors. I was engaged in watching it. And while I wasn't necessarily rooting for one competitor over the other, this was a really good palate cleanser after seeing Yokozuna's match. Not that Yokozuna's match was fucking terrible or anything, but these guys, the Road Dogg and Bob Holly, they did their best, their absolute best to wrestle a great match. And that effort and that caring to put on a good show came through in the performance. For that, I am giving this match a solid 3 stars. Ryan, what did you think of it?
I loved how it started with Double J teaching the Roadie the strut
Yeah.
in the ring.
The double strut.
Yeah, the double strut by them in the ring was really fantastic to see. I loved it. The other thing to point out here is they're using both the Road Dogg name and Roadie. He gets introduced by Double J as the Road Dogg. He calls himself the Road Dogg and the Roadie. So we're now getting the Road Dogg name introduced. So that was also pretty great to see. Something I thought that was really interesting, because I agree with you 100%. This match was just fun. You know, these two guys were going at each other hard, and I'm really surprised we have these other newcomers that they just, ram down our throat so quickly. And they've had such a slow burn with the Roadie, and as we've seen, he's obviously a good worker in the ring. But it's months now. We've been seeing him just as this sub-character to Double J for months. The more and more we see him, I get more excited. This match was a fun pay-per-view match to watch. The one point where you mentioned Bartlett with the Hurricanrana, I laughed how neither Vince or Doc knew the name of it. Doc even says, "What an excellent counter maneuver."
Yeah.
But I agree 100%. 3 stars is what I gave it.
Yeah, this was a solid match. And for me, this is going to sound stupid because the Road Dogg kind of cut his teeth on this, but the goofball level is turned up just a little bit too high for me with the dancing and the weird hair and stuff. Like, it's just...
Well, the hair is going to stay.
Yeah. Bob Holly actually stepped on it a few times, I saw. It's just a little too much, but I'm okay with it because I think he looked 1,000 times better in this match than he did at In Your House 1. I thought he looked much, much better here. The crowd didn't seem to be into it too much. Bob Holly was like trying to pump them up when he was getting out of that headlock, and they didn't really care. So that was kind of disappointing. But I'm with you guys. I thought it was solid. I gave it 3 stars. It started out fast. It kind of slowed down, but then it picked up again. And I thought the Roadie was better than last time. So yeah, 3 from me too. we're pretty close here because Meltzer gave it 2.5 stars. He says it was fast-paced with a lot of near falls early. Hawley was very impressive here, and Rhodey takes good bumps. He's green on offense, but has great potential. So, yeah, 2.5 stars.
And we're about to hit the peak of the hill tonight.
Yep.
Yeah. For once, I tend to agree with Meltzer on that one. I think that's a pretty solid opinion on this.
We agree with Meltzer about 50% of the time.
Yeah, and Ryan, that you had a really, really good point on this about the slow burn of the roadie. I hadn't even thought of it that way, but you're absolutely correct. This is something that just, it never goes away, but that's a good thing. It's, what's that saying that we always hear from Conrad Thompson's podcast? How am I supposed to miss you if you don't go away? How are we supposed to look forward to seeing the roadie in the ring if he doesn't stay out of the ring for a few months in between matches,
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Speaking of good stuff, just real quick, backstage with Shawn Michaels. Shawn cuts a great promo, and question, guys, was this the first time we've heard Shawn Michaels himself, the Heartbreak Kid himself, refer to the super kick as chin music?
I think so.
It might be. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I didn't think I was wrong on that one, but for the most part, he's been using the super kick, but the super kick hasn't been referred to even as the super kick most of the time. I think it was either Jim Ross or Gorilla Monsoon or somebody called it the super kick once a while ago, but usually they just say that devastating kick.
Yeah.
Or roundhouse kick most of the time.
What a maneuver.
We will see more of that as this promo takes us into our next match. Shawn Michaels versus Kama with the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase ends in a time limit draw in a King of the Ring quarterfinal match in 15 minutes. At 15 minutes, there's a lot to talk about with this match, but as far as my personal highlights go, right off the bat, I loved the bob and weave from Shawn Michaels, dodging Kama's punches. I thought that was an excellent add-on. It's something you've never seen Shawn Michaels do in the ring before, but it is something that is entirely appropriate for a competitor going up against somebody whose gimmick is being an MMA fighter. So I loved the bob and weave. This is where, and guys, please tell me you noticed, Hat Guy.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
Hat Guy from ECW was in the first row at his standard position.
So distracting.
Oh, I loved it. I was so happy to realize that he was sitting there. That's good shit. It comes in handy later on, too. I loved the way that Shawn Michaels was popping up to sell the punches and kicks from Kama in the corner. Kama had Shawn stretched out across the top turnbuckle, and with every punch and kick, Shawn Michaels popped himself up a little bit to really sell the impact. It looked great. I know that the angle here was to work the back that had been damaged by Sid, but whenever they got in that hold, well, it was almost like a steep camel clutch or Boston Crab type hold. Whenever they got in that and just sat in it, that just killed whatever enthusiasm I had getting built into it. I have to say, though, that in this case, the time limit draw was a shitty ending for this. The way that they ended this match did absolutely nothing to enhance this story for me, and it just all in all really put me out. It's convenient that this gives the winner of the Undertaker Mabel match a bye through a round. I mean, let's think hypothetically, if we're watching this at home for the first time and it's, live, it's possible that either Shawn Michaels or Kama are going to go up against either the Undertaker or Mabel, and we can't have a good match because, 3 of those 4 people would have given us a good match. We can't have that. Unfortunately, there just wasn't enough going on in this match to keep me up on it. I had the opposite feeling here that I did in the Yokozuna match. It felt like this match lasted a lot longer than 15 minutes, and that was not a good thing. Also, though, there was really nothing here that explicitly pissed me off either. I mean, there was that sitting in a hold that was just a turnoff, but it didn't make me angry. I was overall disappointed in this match because of the potential that it had going in and the potential that it started with. But the failure to live up to that potential, in my eyes, is going to make me give this match 1 star. Joe, what did you think?
My first comment is Shawn Michaels' ring psychology is just, it's unbelievable. It's so good. And you talked about the bobbing and weaving. He's incorporating all that shit to kind of tell a story, with Kama being the fighter and everything.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the match was just really good. There was a display of legit power from Kama and legit athleticism from Michaels the whole time towards the beginning. But like you said, it's sort of, they went into the holds and stuff to kill that 15 minutes. And I didn't think it was terrible. I gave this 4 stars because of Shawn Michaels only. Pretty much. I thought he was awesome from the time that Matt and Jeff opened the doors for him till the very end. He even got like the Hulk must pose treatment at the end.
Yeah.
He was like celebrating in the ring there. So I gave it 4 for that. But here's the thing with Kama's basically like a lower card guy, mid card at best at this point. And you let him go the distance with Shawn Michaels. So you better be shooting him to the moon after this, right?
Yeah, you would think.
But we'll see what happens. I mean, that was the part that I hated about it, but entertainment factor, 4 stars.
Starts off, we see the Sprocket couple down at ring, and it looks like they've added some black eye makeup to.
I like that they'll pay for them to travel, but not Harvey Whippleman
but not
Sonny.
the managers. But yeah, it looks like he was beat up in the parking lot before they came in, though. Then now he's got a bunch of black eyes, and like you both said, I absolutely loved how quick this match started off. Just, Michaels with his dodging and just like you said, Joe, setting up this just wonderful story of like a David Goliath match between the power and speed. It holds for a good portion of this match. It was great to see Kama finally in no longer in these jobber matches, because when he's up against a superstar like Shawn Michaels, they did a really great job for each other, but they did start to bring the match down with them trying to stretch it out to this time limit, making it go to the 15 minutes. And it did a disservice to this match. One thing I did like, though, I know we discussed a few weeks ago, I think you brought it up, Bartlett, that you thought the torture rack from Lex Luger would have fit Kama much better. Yeah. And he had like a modified torture rack in here. Instead of holding him across both of his shoulders, he just had his back stretched over one shoulder.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was something we haven't seen Kama use, but it was similar to the torture rack. So I thought that was kind of interesting. He was using a something like it. But once they got into that camel clutch looking move and they just stretched it out, that did bring the match down for me. Like, I thought before some of the slowdown happened that this was a solid 4-star match, but the way that it ended and the way that it was clear that it was just a way to kind of leave a match open for Mabel or Undertaker so they don't have to wrestle next, it was disappointing that you took 2 of your better wrestlers out of the competition right here. So I gave it 3 stars.
At this point in the show, we're all thinking that The Undertaker is definitely winning the King of the Ring. Right?
Honestly.
He's a shoo-in.
Shoo-in.
Dave Meltzer gave this match 2 3/4 stars. He says Michaels did about as good a job as possible considering the handicap of working with someone for 15 minutes who outweighed him by about 120 pounds and who is marginal at best.
Oh, that's a little harsh on Kama.
Yeah. But like I said, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to, you have to give Kama this push now. It's kind of like when they had the 1, 2, 3 kid go the distance with Bret Hart there on Raw.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
And that makes me think of something with Shawn Michaels here. Other guys, most notably Bret Hart, whenever they have matches like this with higher time limits on them, it's always some kind of injury that they go with, whether severe or not. It always depends on the story. But the one thing that I love about Shawn Michaels is that he always goes for exhaustion as opposed to injury to work up the drama of the match. And ordinarily, that's something that I really, really like about the way that he performs. I kind of felt he went a little overboard with it in this. The more I think about it and the more I hear what you guys had to say about it, it wasn't horrible by any means, but you can only act tired for so long before the rally kind of becomes not believable, I guess. I don't know what made me think of that just now, but...
While you mention that, there's a story that apparently Shawn Michaels, to be a dick, now that's cut out of the network, obviously, but he goes over to the crown and puts it on his head. And he's like, oh, it's too big for me, and then puts it back, like kind of giving away that he's not going to be King of the Ring. And I guess Vince was like super pissed about that. And it's obviously not on the network, so.
Yeah, that's interesting. That fits with every single story I've ever heard about Shawn Michaels from this time.
Yeah.
Well, let's check in with Bob Backlund on the campaign trail.
Good way to go into the second half of this pay-per-view.
Yeah. I'm not going to go into detail as to what was happening here. The only thing that I have to say about this was that this was comedically bad. They tried for comedy.
Yeah.
But it was bad. Comedically bad.
Couldn't have said it better.
So, Ryan, was this a pro or a con?
I think I already kind of showed it there. It was a con.
Okay, well, I just wanted it nice and clear. Just a second here.
This one, though, he was not off script. This was a scripted one, but still ended in the negative column.
Yeah. I think it was because he was out and about and trying to interact with the world around him, which isn't really on the same level of...
The cheesesteak thing, like, I felt like that had potential, but then he, like, flubbed his line or something.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, that's enough.
It had a little potential, and then he botched it.
Yep. He should have, like, thrown it on the ground or something,
or asked for Swiss cheese on it or something.
Right.
Well, gentlemen, here we go.
Here it is.
The back half.
Our next match. Mabel with Mo defeats The Undertaker with Paul Bearer by pinfall in a King of the Ring quarterfinal match in 10 minutes.
Did you say, you said by pinfall? By pinfall.
You said Mabel defeated The Undertaker.
That is correct.
By pinfall.
Yeah.
By pinfall.
All right.
And it took 10 minutes and 44 seconds to do it. It's a damn good thing that Mabel got that bye after 10 minutes and 44 seconds. The first thing that I had to note upon entrances, I mean, fuck Mabel and his entrance, but Paul Bearer, and we say it constantly here, but Paul Bearer is such an essential part of the whole Undertaker gimmick. And I know this isn't a direct comment on the match, but I just had to say it here because the entire presentation here is just fantastic. This is something that you don't really get as much of during Monday Night Raws because generally speaking at this point in time, they're in smaller venues and yada, yada, yada. But here on the pay-per-view, there's a longer entryway. There's more opportunity for effects and things like that. And the fact that there's the billowing smoke and that Paul Bearer comes out first with The Undertaker trailing about 8-10 feet behind so that we get this glorious head-on view of Paul Bearer with the shrouded silhouette of The Undertaker behind. The delivery, fucking perfect every time. I love the pay-per-view entrances of Paul Bearer and The Undertaker. Just fucking amazing.
The absolute beauty of that man's face. It just it can't go without mentioning. It can't.
Yes. Contrary-wise, Mabel, so slow and sloppy. And the thing that just jumped out to me in spades, it was just reaching out and smacking me in the face, is that Mabel being in there with one of the best workers of all time in The Undertaker, it just put so much more emphasis on the fact that Mabel is slow and shitty. It made it stand out that much more. This happened a couple times. It was really concerning, and I guess impressive, but more concerning, to see Mabel literally sitting on The Undertaker with that chin hold, and then standing on The Undertaker. That was just flat out disgusting. The way that they did it, he was putting full weight on him. I don't know how that worked and how The Undertaker could handle that the way that he did. The way that they were doing it, there wasn't any way for Mabel to distribute his weight to ease up on The Undertaker a little bit, so It looked impressive, I guess, but goddamn did it just look disgusting at the same time. It was obvious that Mabel either wouldn't or wasn't able to jump high enough to sell the chokeslam. I had to note that. It was like watching Mike McFucking Reynolds again with Undertaker in the chokeslam. We got a run-in from Kama. I thought that was just garbage in what was already kind of a garbage match here. Because of the run-in, the Undertaker, who was just pinned by Mabel, he's now somehow a threat to Kama as they exit the ring. He just got beat and pinned. Once the pin is over with, he can get up and Kama is afraid of him, and now he is a threat. That part of the storytelling just fell apart for me. Somebody that just got pinned and beaten up by a big fat man should not be a threat to somebody who is a mixed martial arts fighter. It should be like prime time to swoop in to, like a vulture, to finish kicking his ass or something like that, not get scared and run away. My biggest takeaway from this match was that in an effort to be a professional, The Undertaker was visibly toning himself down so as not to outshine Mabel. Again, super convenient that Mabel's fat ass gets a bye round. Otherwise, he might not have had the stamina to make it through to the end. Just because it's good business for The Undertaker to job out to Mabel does not make this good wrestling in the least bit. But, like so many matches that we have here tonight, there was nothing that jumped out as specifically offensive to me either. So, for those reasons, I'm giving this match 1 star. Ryan, what did you think?
Mabel just is bad. It was really sad to have to see. Like you kind of could see The Undertaker having to hold back, having to not look as great as he usually does just to not show up Mabel. I mean, there's so many spots, like towards the beginning, The Undertaker's in control, and then Mabel does this reverse, if we're going to call it that, because it's just so slow and off its mark that I was not even sure what he did until Vince told me it was a reverse. Oh, okay. It was very clear after a few minutes into this match that there was one wrestler in this match, and then there was one big, fat, sloppy flap-a-fuck that just couldn't get a match together. And the fact that a veteran, a great like The Undertaker, had to job out to Mabel. He didn't get a loss like Yokozuna did where there's an excuse. He got pinned by Mabel. Unlike you, I could not find a silver lining in this match. I will say it was marginally better than the WrestleMania King Kong Bundy match, but the fact that they made Undertaker job to Mabel, it made it a dud in my book.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a dud rating too. I'll just start off with that. I will say, I'm glad you pointed out, Bartlett, the entrance, because they had like the graveyard on the screen and you could hear like the wind noise that they had along with the Undertaker's entrance. I thought the Undertaker's entrance was great. Again, that's, part of his thing. Really, to not take for granted the most beautiful man in wrestling, Paul Bearer, because I think about the people that are there paying money to see this event. And, if you're someone that's sitting near the aisle and you're seeing Paul Bearer come down, like, that's got to be awesome. You know?
That's a life event right there.
Right. The match itself is just bad. And I understand the silver lining that you're finding, but I kind of went the opposite way on this. I'm saying shame on you, Undertaker, for signing off on this. Like, you've got enough clout. Don't take a pinfall. Take the loss, maybe, but maybe come up with something else. Like, how about you chase after Kama and get counted out? Or, like, just anything but taking a pinfall loss to Mabel, who can't even move. He literally can't even move at all. He's terrible. So I gave it a dud. Meltzer gives it half a star and mentions something very interesting. And, I tried to think about this, and you guys can too, but he calls it the first pinfall loss The Undertaker took since challenging Hulk Hogan back around 1991.
Wow. That makes it even more pathetic.
Yes, I think He might be right. I mean, we haven't seen him lose by pinfall. We saw him lose the casket match to Yokozuna.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But man, that is just sad.
To Mabel.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, you have to kind of take it in context with we haven't really seen a whole lot of Undertaker non-jobber matches, really, over the course of the whole podcast so far. In between pay-per-views, he had a couple injuries going on in between the casket matches and then the whole fake Undertaker bullshit.
Right.
But yeah, that's a great point. That is a fantastic point. And I think while I certainly understand what you're saying about he should have opted for a different path if possible with this, personally, I think that they were on the right track with the run-in from Kama, but it just wasn't enough. If we had, say, maybe Kama coming in and nailing him with the ring bell, something very physically devastating that would justify the pinfall, not just a quick run-in and then, oh my God, But I think that the bigger message that we get from this is just how fucking badly they were trying to push Mabel. That Vince would take his guy that by how, you just laid it out there. This guy doesn't lose very often, if at all. And Vince wants to hurt that gimmick and that credibility and that money draw to put Mabel over for this bullshit. Where did he think it was going to go? Did he think that he was going to have Mabel as a superstar, as a top tier, top guy for years after this? Because that's the kind of payoff that you would expect from asking the Undertaker of all fucking people to job out.
Yeah.
It boggles my mind that this finish was worth the possible damage to the Undertaker's reputation that he had spent so long building. Well, thank goodness we've got the Stridex indoor blimp looking down on us. The previous night was the Hall of Fame ceremony. It looked like a good time up until the little speech from Antonino Rocca's widow. Things took a slightly lame turn then. That kind of lost me. And I'm not trying to be insensitive, but it was a pretty bad speech. And then Ivan Putski singing some kind of 1920s love song didn't help at all. Thankfully, we're going to move on to our next match. Savio Vega with Razor Ramon defeats the Roadie with Double J Jeff Jarrett by pinfall in a King of the Ring semifinal match in 6 minutes and 36 seconds. At the backstage promo, Double J calls the Roadie the Road Dog. It was uncanny in its prescience, the amount of times that they were calling him this. No wonder they ended up sticking with that. The crowd really did not seem behind this match, and I have to say that I can really empathize with that. I can't put my finger on why exactly, but it just didn't grab me. And before you know it, the match is over. I'm not sure if it was fatigue or what that had me tuned out for this, but once again, this match it wasn't good or bad, it was just kind of there. Knowing that this builds towards a match with Mabel doesn't have me excited either. And while I am still up on Savio Vega in general, the knowledge of what's to come is starting to temper that excitement. So, since nothing much stood out here as particularly good or bad, I'm going to give this match 1 star. Joe, what do you have on this one?
I completely agree with you, and I think they're not into it because of what they just saw. They just saw the Undertaker get pinned by Mabel.
They're like, what's the fucking point?
Yeah. It was a weird match, just not good chemistry, and had like a cheesy ending to it. Yeah, the crowd was bored, and so was I. I'm going with 1 star.
It's funny because the ring work itself wasn't bad. As we've talked about tonight, the Roadie and Vega both could put on a good show, but yeah, it just feels like that last match fatigued everyone involved, us, the crowd, the Roadie, Savio Vega, and it put together a forgettable match that could have been a lot better. We're in all agreement. 1 star here.
And if you're at the event, you're thinking the top guys are at ringside, Jeff Jarrett and Razor Ramon.
Yeah.
But you're watching these other two. So Meltzer gave it 1 star, so we have we're all in agreement here. He mentions no heat at all. I'm assuming he's talking about Rhodey and Jarrett.
Yeah.
And he thought the Doc Hendricks Spanish translating bit was really funny. I kind of disagree with that, but he enjoyed it.
All right.
Yeah, that fell pretty damn flat.
Parlance of the times, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, next up. Oh, boy. Well, we're going to start with a promo from Bret Hart. Bret looks forward to it all coming to an end tonight, and for the love of Christ, I hope he's right. This promo takes us into our next match. Bret Hart defeats Jerry the King Lawler by submission in the Kiss My Foot match in 9 minutes and 20 seconds. Match gimmick aside, the work in the ring here isn't that bad. And I have to give credit where credit is due. I would have expected no less from these two professionals. If you just forget, if it's at all possible, forget the stupid fucking foot angle on this. This was a pretty decent match technically in the ring. In terms of in-ring storytelling, like, for example, the multiple pile drivers on the Hitman by the King. That's where it starts to fall apart a little bit for me. This is something that started to just not quite make sense a little bit because, once again, multiple pile drivers followed by an effortless kick out.
This is supposed to be his finisher.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Finishers that don't finish. I have a problem with that.
JR.
Okay, another prime example of where the storytelling starts to shit the bed. Somehow the official doesn't see the King hitting the Hitman with the boot, despite it being literally right in front of the official. It's like 2 feet in front of him, blatant. I don't know.
Well, the official, Earl Hebner, knows it's the low point of his career.
Yeah,
at this
sure.
point.
I did like the submission win. I've always been a huge fan of submission moves and submission finishers. And for me, it does add a certain level of satisfaction to the whole thing. But then whatever satisfaction I got from it is just ruined by the double run-in by Hakushi and Shinja. Like, that didn't add anything to this at all. And then the close-up of the King deep-throating Bret Hart's toe didn't work for me, brother. Not to mention the Hitman making Lawler kiss his own foot. That's just, we don't need that extra bit of oomph. Just get the fuck out of the ring, please. Thank you. Overall, if this match hadn't been so oversold in the lead-up, and if the gimmick had been something more satisfying, like that strap match that we talked about last week, this probably would have been much, much better. The work really wasn't bad, but again, there was nothing special here at all. Once again, these things add up to 1 star for me. Ryan.
I'm in complete agreement. It starts off and, this looks like a good match between 2 legendary veterans. I enjoyed towards the beginning. They get outside the ring and Lawler grabbed the Hitman by his trunks and slung him into the stairs, and that kind of started Lawler's takeover. The work between these 2 guys are just, there's nothing at all to complain about. It's all this gimmick, all of it. It's a shame. They had these 2 just greats who obviously could put on a great show together, and they hobbled them with this just ridiculous idea. A strap match, first blood match, any type of match other than a kiss my foot, or we're not there yet, a kiss my ass match, or, something stupid like that. And like you said, this is something that could have been, with these 2 greats, could have been a 3 or maybe even a 4-star match given different circumstances. But because of all of this just ridiculousness involved, it brought it all the way down to a 1 star.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I can't get past the gimmick at all. And the double run-in, to me, was just stupid and unnecessary. Even the storytelling between the announcers for this one, like, Jerry Lawler goes for a cover at one point, and Vince says Bret's career is coming to an end. I'm like, what is he talking about? Is this a career-ending match? The only good part of this, to me, was the sharpshooter ending. Like you said, Bartlett, that submission ending was good, and the crowd was loving it. They were popping their ass off for that sharpshooter. But It's the gimmick. I gave it a dud. I hate it. I hate it. Meltzer gave it 2 3/4 stars. He said,
Jesus Christ.
not a good match technically, but Hart was the most over person on the show. And Lawler did a great job working the crowd, so the match had by far the most crowd heat and interest. I can't disagree with him on that, but 2 3/4 is generous.
Yeah, I just disagree with how much he decides to weigh that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's way too much. Way too much. Moving into the next segment, first we're going to have a brief look at the past 2 coronations, this being Bret Hart in 1993 and Owen Hart in 1994. 2 very different situations and wrestlers than what we have in front of us here. This whimsical look back at the past is going to take us into our next match. Mabel with Mo defeats Savio Vega with Razor Ramon by pinfall in the King of the Ring final in 8 minutes and 32 seconds. Oh boy. You know, I loved the chops on Mabel from Savio
Yes.
Vega.
Chopping him like a jobber.
It was great knowing that Savio was at least taking a piece of Mabel in exchange for doing the job. I had to give a little Breakfast Club fist bump at Savio. Like, right on, man. Just chop that fat bitch as hard as you can
Slap
if you're going to be taking
titties.
this. But, you know, of course, Mabel's big ass can't do much after working once already. And he sits in a bear hug in what felt like forever. I didn't time it, but it eventually became forever. I'm pretty sure that at a minimum, this bear hug was half of the match. Like, I'm not even exaggerating or kidding. They sat in this fucking bear hug forever. Once, Savio tried to get out and get moving, but Mabel grabbed him and then sat in a hold again. This time a chokehold laying on the mat. The fucker couldn't even stand up. He had to lay down to put this chokehold on Savio Vega. It was at this point, was the crowd chanting ECW?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Very loud and clear.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought so, but I wasn't positive. I couldn't understand it exactly clearly. Vince was really pissing me off with his constant calling the victory on 2 counts. It's something that I've been noticing more and more over the months here, not just pay-per-views, but on Raw too. It happens more on Raw, really, because we see more of them, but every time there's a 2 count, he calls it as a fucking victory. Thank Friar Ferguson it ended, but the ongoing squashing of Razor Ramon after the match, unnecessary, especially with Mabel flopping off the ropes into that elbow drop. It was good to see the 1-2-3 Kid back in the ring. He was on fire here, but not enough to rekindle my enthusiasm. And after all of this, the crowning ceremony between Mo and Mabel, it was just like the match. It felt like it went on forever. So this match represents everything that was bad about the booking in 1995. I'm not even going to go into the multitude of reasons why. It should be fairly obvious that this is garbage. This is just simple, flat-out garbage fucking booking to put over a monster that has no talent other than he's a big fat ass. Even though this went a long way to putting over Savio Vega, you know, he's got a little feather in his cap to say that he made it all the way to the end of the King of the Ring tournament. It's still not enough to justify this bullshit. For me, this match is a dud. Joe, what did you think?
It's probably the worst match I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Mabel just doesn't know how to sell anything at all. When he's covering an opponent kicks out, he does nothing to sell that. I understand he's 600 pounds, but that doesn't mean that when a 300-pound man is punching you, that it has no effect at all. Like, it's going to hurt. He doesn't sell anything at all, ever. The ECW chant was perfect because this crowd just hates this. They hate everything about it. Just unbelievable that they did this. I gave it a dud times 5. I hate it so much. The elbow on Razor Ramon was fucking terrible. Like, I don't know. I didn't even know who the kid was when he came out. I didn't realize that was him. I'm like, who the hell is that?
He wasn't wearing Grandma Ninja.
Since you mentioned the ceremony, This is probably the worst moment in WWF history up to this point, easily.
Wow.
But the biggest pop was when they threw a piece of trash and hit Mabel in the head, so that was entertaining. So yeah, dud from me.
There's nothing good to mention in this match outside of Savio Vega. I mean, let's be honest. This guy has been wrestling all night. This is his fourth match, so I'm not going to put much of this on him, and that's no surprise. Mabel's involved, so like you guys said, he doesn't know how to sell. He doesn't know how to wrestle. About the only thing I could really give him credit for is growing out that mohawk. It's looking pretty good. He's looking like a villain with that big, tall, black mohawk. It looks pretty impressive, so way to go on that. I don't understand how they decided to give Mabel the crown here. We have how many other great wrestlers that were involved in this tournament? What? Let's name them. What? Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Kama, Savio Vega, who he's wrestling against. I would have been happy with him winning this and them completing the push of Savio Vega. I'm fine with that. That's better than Mabel.
Yeah. We could have had Owen Hart or the British Bulldog.
There could have been so many other people other than Mabel to win this that it really does. It just boggles the mind to think this is the decision that they fell upon. The bear hug. How long was this match? What was the time limit?
This was 8:32.
The bear hug felt like 5 minutes of that 8 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how long this bear hug was. And why does Mabel need the break? Mabel has been involved in one match tonight. Savio Vega has been involved, and this is his fourth. Why is Mabel the one that needs a breather to sit in this bear hug? Easy. I mean, no surprise here. Dud all the way. The crowning ceremony, long too. Way too long. The biggest thing I got a kick out of was seeing the 1, 2, 3 run out in that Fila tracksuit. That was something really special. Man, I want that Fila tracksuit.
We saw a lot of trash get thrown during the Attitude Era, but you didn't see it too often here. But the Philly crowd was letting them have it, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dave Meltzer gave this -1 star.
Excellent.
He said it was
excellent.
It was not a surprise to hear the ECW chant, but a surprise to hear just how many were doing it and how loud it was. Vince McMahon didn't know what was going on because he said, listen to the crowd, thinking they were chanting for Vega, and it was a very loud chant. They quickly turned down the crowd audio when they figured out what was going on.
Man, all I can say about that is that it must have felt really fucking awesome to be Paul Heyman right then.
Yeah.
Well, the bullshit just can't end here, folks. We get a close-up of Jerry the King Lawler vomiting and eating toothpaste and chugging mouthwash backstage after having to fucking deep throat Brett's foot and then his own and
ptomaine poison.
Oh my God. So fucking gross.
I wonder if he'll be in the need of a dentist.
Oh,
might be.
Hopefully. But then we get a great, crazy promo from Sid backstage about crushing Diesel's elbow. This was good shit, pal. This Sid promo, that's the kind of Sid promo I love to hear. But then, once again, the little kid following the big kid around, Tatanka's promo following up Sid's, wasn't. It was nothing to write home about at all.
He just wanted to make it to the pay window, pal.
Yeah. Well, those promos are going to lead us into our main event of the night. Diesel and Bam Bam Bigelow defeats the $1 Million Corporation, that's Psycho Sid and Tatanka, with the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, by pinfall in 17 minutes and 35 seconds.
So before the match starts, I just want to point out one thing that you skipped over. During Bam Bam Bigelow and Diesel's promo, we get a very clear sideways shot of Todd Pettingzoo, and it is video confirmation he has cut his rat tail.
Oh.
So I just wanted to point that out.
That's big news.
Yeah.
It is.
He's thankfully moved up to about 1992 now. He'll get to 1995 and about 1999. In this match, this was the first time that I really noticed the size difference between Diesel and Bam Bam. They haven't tried to hide it before. It's just, for whatever reason, this is the first time that it jumped out at me. And it occurs to me that if we're trying to get Bam Bam over as a babyface, it's probably not the best idea to put him next to a guy that makes him look short and fat by comparison. Just a note from a fan on that, I guess. I liked Tatanka's time in the ring with Diesel at the start of the match. That's the most Tatanka has entertained me in months. I felt he was doing pretty good with Diesel there at the beginning. When Bam Bam got the hot tag and came in with high energy, I wasn't turned off, but it was like watching a 1-2-3 kid rally. The energy level just seemed like too much for Bam Bam. If I want to see Bam Bam come in on a hot tag, I want to see him come in throwing punches and just throwing his weight around as opposed to skipping around and doing the crowd pump gesture with his fists, you know? I loved Sid's chokeslam on Bam Bam from the second rope and the maniacal laughing afterwards. I thought that was good stuff there. Energy issues aside, I had to note once again how great of a worker Bam Bam is. Very rarely does Bam Bam disappoint when it comes to just the straight up work in the ring. Surprisingly, or maybe unsurprisingly, Sid wasn't looking that bad either when he was in with Bam Bam. I'm not sure if I should chalk that up to Sid just looking better because he has practiced and worked a little more since that Diesel match, or if it's because Bam Bam was making him look better. Either way, it looked good to me. Quick question, guys. Is it just me, or was Diesel using the injured elbow on an elbow drop just extremely ridiculous?
I mean, you would have thought he knew how injured his elbow was. So, yeah, pretty stupid.
Yeah. Here is where I was happy to see Hat Guy before, but did you guys notice that throughout this match, Hat Guy was just relentlessly chewing Tatanka out? He ignored everybody else here. He ignored Diesel, Bam Bam, and Sid. Every single time Tatanka was anywhere near him or facing him, Hat Guy was on the tips of his toes, leaning over the rail, sticking the finger out, and just chewing Tatanka out. It was great to see. That jackknife on Tatanka, though, that was not great to see. That was fucking ugly. I disliked Diesel pulling Tatanka up out of the pin in order to call in Sid. That is where things, as far as my enjoyment of the match, just kind of fell apart a little bit for me. I was fairly up on things up until then. It knocked me down a peg. But I liked Sid just walking out and abandoning Tatanka to be pinned by Diesel. I don't know what it is about that. Maybe it's me just hoping that Sid can be a solo superstar without this faction bullshit, but I liked it. All in all, as far as a blow-off goes, this was underwhelming. If it weren't for the build-up and the whole friendship bullshit, I might have been able to view this match in a different, more forgiving light. Most of the action here wasn't bad, but some aspects of the ongoing story and how it played into the match brought it down more often than it elevated it. There were certainly things that were engaging here, just not as much as I would have liked. For those reasons, I'm going to give this match a solid 2 stars. Ryan, what did you think of our main event here?
I really enjoyed it when Bam Bam was in the ring. So it starts off with Diesel, and I agree, the first exchange between Diesel and Tatanka is not bad. But I thought the match really picked up when Bam Bam got in there. Yes, I also agree, not crazy about the high energy skipping Bam Bam, but ring work out of him, as has been mentioned timeless times, is great. You know, he knows how to move and look good in the ring, and there's no difference here. You know, no matter if he was wrestling against Tatanka or when Sid got in, he's just working great with all of them. To me, where the match really went down was when the second time Sid came in. That is when the whole thing with the elbow, because like you said, why would he drop an elbow if he knew his elbow was injured? Do a different move. And then from there, we quickly get Bam Bam in. Bam Bam's able to then turn the match back into their favor, but instead of giving Bam Bam the victory, we're going to tag Diesel in so he could get the pinfall. That really annoyed me because we have Bam Bam out there working his ass off for the good portion of this match, and then we give Diesel the fucking win. Because of that, and because of the build up to it, I wanted to give it 2 stars purely out of Bam Bam's work, but because of that finisher and the fact that this was the headlining match, if this was some mid-card match, it would have been a little bit higher, but because it was the headliner, it gets 1 star out of me.
Bartlett, you talked about the pairing of Bam Bam and Diesel not working for you, brother.
Yeah.
And for me, it's the other side. Sid and Tatanka, for me, I know I'm beating a dead horse. I've said this for the past few weeks, but I hate Sid with Tatanka. Tatanka, to me, is just not a scary heel. He's like over a foot shorter than Sid. They look stupid together, in my opinion. So them just entering the ring, like immediately, I'm just miserable about this match. Not to mention what's already happened the past, half hour or so. And just the buildup. Ryan, you mentioned this friendship buildup that we've had to endure for the past how many weeks. I give it a dud. I went into it wanting to hate it, and I did. It was a horrible jackknife with a horrible cover. I didn't like it. As a standalone event, if I'm watching this, I'm wondering, why the fuck is this the main event?
That's the biggest thing that stuck out to me.
Yeah. So I give it a dud. Dave Meltzer gave it 1.5 stars. He says that the finish was flat and did not do wonders for Sid as a killer heel. It made him more of a Buddy Landell, Jerry Lawler type of coward heel, which, he's walking out. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Show's over. Thank God.
Yeah, and that is literally how the show ends. We go straight to black after that. There's no cool down or anything. So, with that being said, just briefly, guys, overall opinions on this pay-per-view. Joe, why don't you go first?
I mean, we've really said all of our thoughts for the most part, but for me, I'm going again as a standalone pay-per-view. This was just absolutely abysmal if I'm watching this, as a random show on the network. But the fact that we saw the build-up for all of this, I don't know. I mean, the beginning half was okay, but then it took a wrong turn. I think the Balboa thing with Savio it would make a little bit more sense if you were watching chronologically like we are. But if you're just watching this randomly, you're like, why the fuck is Savio getting this push, And the friendship forever shit, it's just, hopefully it's over. I don't know. I can't believe they had the balls to start a push for Mabel on a pay-per-view because we weren't getting that push on Raw. All of a sudden, it just happens on this pay-per-view. Those are my thoughts.
My main thoughts are I don't understand the thought process behind some of the writing and booking. It's just, we had a whole lot of great wrestlers involved in this pay-per-view, and if you pick out little pieces of this pay-per-view, they were promising. But again, I'm going to use the word hobbled because they just continuously would get hobbled by terrible storytelling. Let's take, Bret Hart Lawler. Very good match, but the lead up and the ending to it, absolutely stupid. It just makes you not care about the match at all, and if anything, be disgusted about the match. Same thing with the King of the Ring. You have some absolutely phenomenal wrestlers in this King of the Ring, yet you give the win to Mabel. Like you said, Joe, I enjoyed this Savio Vega push, so give him the fucking win at the end. Finish it. And then to top it off, we get this as our final match. This just throwaway tag team match that doesn't mean anything. It's for no title. It's for no rep. It's for nothing. It's just this throwaway match with an injured guy who can't even put on a good show in the ring. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, those are all fantastic points. I completely agree about Savio Vega, definitely. Mabel's just... I don't get it. I think the best way that I can sum up my thoughts on this pay-per-view is that out of all of these matches, and we had a lot of matches here tonight. I know it seems like we kind of breezed through them here, but there was a lot of material to work with, and we were trying to keep it to a relatively short time considering. But out of all of these matches, 5 of them, I gave 5 of them 1 star. I think that says something in and of itself. This was a 1-star pay-per-view. Because of, Savio, and there were a couple there were a couple decent matches here. I wouldn't be able to give this a dud overall rating, but I certainly think this has earned a solid 1-star overall pay-per-view
Definitely
rating.
a disappointment.
It's hard to believe that just 1 year later is the birth of Austin 316.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like it's so far away at this point.
Yeah.
What a difference a year can make. Well, Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around the 1995 King of the Ring?
Well, mostly just the thoughts from the Observer on the event itself. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of wondered, when I went into reading this, I thought, I wonder what the reaction was right away on this event. Can you guess the percentage of thumbs up on this show?
12%.
I'll be generous and say 23%.
Well, you're both generous because it was 7.6% thumbs up.
Wow.
Immediate hatred. 85.8% thumbs down, 6% in the middle. The best match was Shawn Michaels versus Kama at 78 votes. Bret Hart versus Jerry Lawler was 65 votes in second. The worst match, I think it should be no surprise that the fans selected Undertaker versus Mabel at 80 votes, and second place was Savio Vega versus Mabel, 72.
Mabel, the common factor here.
Your King of the Ring was voted the 2 worst matches. That's it for the readers. For Dave Meltzer's comments, he basically just says this was the worst WWF pay-per-view in a long time. The show was bad enough that the most entertaining part of the show was the color commentator doing a fake Spanish language translation. I disagree with that, but whatever.
Yeah.
It made a show that looked weak going in on paper be even worse than expected. That is a great comment.
Yeah.
Right there. Dave Meltzer did actually praise the production of the show, and that's something we kind of look past. I kind of agree with that, considering all those glitches they had at WrestleMania and everything like that.
Yeah, no audio problems here.
No audio problems, yeah. He just said that the matches were so bad it sort of overshadowed the production. That is all I have.
I don't think it is talking out of turn or talking out of school or however you want to put it to say that watching this pay-per-view was a bit of a chore.
It lived up to its name.
Yeah. And I try not to, sometimes we just can't help it. I try not to let the negativity bleed into the commentary and what we do here, but this just was not a good pay-per-view at all.
I know it doesn't get much better after this, but thank Friar Ferguson that we made it past this.
Thank Friar Ferguson, yes. Well, that's it, folks. We are done with this one. Thank Friar Ferguson. I want to thank you again for joining us, and if you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can find us on every major social media and podcast subscription platform by searching up the handle Wrasslin Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. While you're there, don't forget to click subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know about the fastest growing wrestling podcast in the world. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on June 26th, 1995, with matches featuring Skip, the Black Phantom, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.